Welcome to the Lovoni and Sarah podcast, where we chat weight loss, health, well-being, and share our stories to help and inspire others. I'm Lovoni.
And I'm Sarah, and on today's episode, we're joined by our special guest, Dani, who's a holistic weight loss coach, food blogger, and YouTuber with over 2 million subscribers. Dani's talking with us about why diets don't work, sharing her weight loss story, advice on how to start and maintain weight loss transition, as well as chatting about her book, Clean and Delicious. So please join us for what's going to be a really informative episode. Before we get started, we're sharing on how we did with last week's challenge.
Just to remind people, so last week's challenge was that you had to cook all your own food. So
Yes.
not to eat out,
No
not to
processed
have any
food.
ultra
Yeah.
processed food, all the rest of it. And so I have to fess up because, well, I had a blowout.
Like a really big confession's coming.
I know, dun, dun, dun. I took a friend to a great food store down in Indianapolis called Saraga, and they had food places set up all along in there, but didn't have any of that. Afterwards, we went for dim sum, yum cha, to a restaurant nearby, and thoroughly enjoyed it. All the little dumplings, you know,
Good.
those, yeah, yummy steamed dumplings, salt and pepper squid, yeah, lots of tea, maybe had a beer. Anyway,
Oh,
and
well,
then
if you're
I
going to do
came
it.
home, right? I came home and saw Sarah's post that she'd put on the stories about this is our challenge for the week. Our challenge is to cook all your own food. And I was like, oh God.
Fail.
Yeah, failed at that one. I didn't even think about it. I was just sitting there thinking how full my tummy was from the dumplings.
Feeling like a
Anyway,
little dumpling.
you're right, feeling like a little dumpling. But I no sooner read that than I got a message from the friend that had gone to dim sum with me saying, well, I guess you blew that challenge,
Dobbing
didn't
you
you?
right in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I had that, and I had a moment yesterday. Do we need to talk about that one
Yes,
too?
we do. Come on.
Okay,
Now we're
gosh.
getting it all out in the open. Come on.
Right, I dropped in to see a friend who owns a lovely Mexican restaurant in a little town called Cicero near me, and because the grandpa had died, so I thought I'll pop in there.
Which is
I'll
very
grab
nice
some
of you.
salsa, and I'll grab some salsa while I'm there, because then I can just be eating some salsa and chips because they do all the stuff in house there while I'm working in the afternoon. And I walk in and I ordered it. She's like, do you want to have a margarita with me? And I was like, yeah, why not? Because she makes the best margaritas because they're all made from scratch. So I sat at the bar and instead of taking my salsa out, I sat at the bar and chatted to her for quite a while. I only had one margarita though, but anyway. So yes, there
Just
we
the
go.
one.
The rest of the time I've been happily cooking my own food.
Well, I don't
What
know if
about
I feel
you?
cheated or if I should feel very righteous because I
Just be
actually did
righteous,
the
Sarah.
challenge. I
You
did
know
the
you
challenge.
want to be
I
righteous.
know I
Just
want to
do it.
be.
Run
My
with it.
halo.
Yeah. Yeah.
We went, well, the only day really that I found it particularly challenging as such was we went out Saturday and we were out on the road for most of the day. And it got to past lunchtime. I was like, oh, we haven't eaten anything. What am I going to do? I was like, I can't eat because I have to eat at home. So I bought some fruit. That was it. Well,
That's very
somebody
well
else
done.
chomped on a takeaway
I know.
sandwich and did this and did
Yeah,
that. But anyway.
dumplings. Oh, right. Oh,
Oh
yeah,
no,
yeah.
yes.
Oh,
My
I see
partner when
what
I
you
was
mean.
out.
I thought you meant me,
Yeah.
but
Well, no,
yeah,
you
yeah,
too. I
him.
didn't know that if I know.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I was good at that point. That was on the weekend, right?
yeah,
Yeah, no, I was
yeah.
good then. Yeah, it was
So
just
yeah, I did feel very,
dumplings got
very
me.
righteous. He bought a sandwich and stuff. It's like, nope, just got my fruit, got my water, and then had that. So I've done very well. I'm going to draw up a little tally, Livoni, and you have got a big round 0 next to yours, and I've
Okay,
got a
Sarah's going
1
to do
next
another
to mine. A
spreadsheet because we know
spreadsheet.
she loves those. Yeah, give me a 0. I
Yeah,
earned it. Yeah.
next week. Next week's going to be yours.
I am going to make myself something very delicious tonight though. Because I've got pumpkin,
Oh,
which I mean that might not sound exciting, but one, I love pumpkin, and two, it's hard to get here.
is
I mean,
it?
they have butternut squash, we call
Yeah.
butternut pumpkin in Australia, but like pumpkin that's almost Aussie looking pumpkin. So yeah, I'm going to do that with some chicken and redeem myself somewhat. Yeah.
Nice.
Anyway, we have, like you were saying, special guest on the show. So really looking forward to that, to
Really
chatting to
great.
Dani
Yeah.
today. That's going to be awesome. We're incredibly excited to have a special guest on the podcast today. It's our pleasure to welcome Dani. Dani, thank you so much for joining us. I had the pleasure of doing most of the food styling for Dani's book, this fabulous book, Clean and Delicious. You can see I've got some pages marked. And having tried many of the recipes, I can testify that the title is very fitting. We've shared a little bit about you in the intro, but would you like to share with our listeners more about yourself and what made you choose a career path in nutrition,
Sure.
please?
So thank you for having me. So I am I am a health, wellness, and weight coach by nature, right? But that's what I've studied throughout the years. And my husband and I produce a YouTube channel and a cooking blog where our intention is to just make healthy eating easy and accessible and sane and fun and delicious. Uh, so honestly, so much of what I do today was born out of my own journey and struggle with weight and food when I was younger. I actually was all signed up to go to culinary school, and I didn't go because I panicked because I was afraid to be around food like that all of the time. And so I then ended up studying fitness and nutrition because that was like my dual interest. And then it came full circle. So our YouTube channel really was like a happy accident because I was coaching clients and I would go to their house because I had so many people who genuinely wanted to eat better, but they were like, I don't know what to do with a sweet potato. I don't know what to do with eggplant. Like, I don't know what to do with it. So I would go to their house and give everybody like cooking lessons. And so my husband, who was a little bit more in the entertainment industry, he did voiceover for a living, was like, why don't we just record these and put them on YouTube, and then you can share them with your clients? And then that's what we did. And then YouTube started to become YouTube, and it was a bit of a happy accident.
Just sort
Well,
of
now you've got, I said in the intro, you've got over 2 million, it's like 2.2 million followers now on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so does that keep you busy? Is that,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
mean,
that's
definitely. Yeah,
right.
that's a main focus of what we work on. And yeah, it does, because it's a lot of content creation, and it's on an ongoing basis. So
Yeah. Dani, your book, Clean and Delicious, can you just, for people that don't know, here's the book again, but for people that don't know what clean eating is or what that means, can you just give them a bit of a rundown on
sure.
what that is?
I mean, I think truly different people have different definitions, right? For me, the idea of clean eating is simply a focus on real, whole, unprocessed foods as close to their natural state as possible most of the time. I really like to make it clear that I am not a food purist. I think that there's a lot of different ways to approach healthy eating, and that different things work for different people. But I know for myself, when I was in my journey, like really struggling with food and dieting all the time, for me, that focus of like thinking, oh, I can eat all of these foods, like these, there's so many things I can be adding into my diet, into my eating. It just felt like really abundant and fun. So that was kind of what started to turn me on to that approach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I love your ethos of ensuring that food tastes great, as obviously as well as it being clean. Um, what's the hardest thing, do you think, that you found when you've been moving to clean eating, but still keeping the food and the recipe as appetizing as perhaps you'd always want it to be? What's the sort of the trickiest thing you found with that?
I honestly think the hardest thing for myself and for so many people that I've worked with is letting go of what we think we're supposed to do. And
Right.
so you think the answer is going to be, right, like the hardest thing was I can't eat cookies anymore. The hardest thing is I can't buy, Doritos with processed oils or whatever. But it's like, no, you can, right? You like letting go of a lot of the food rules, focusing on what feels good and finding creative ways to level up like classic dishes and things that I love. But I think really letting go of the idea that it has to be done a certain way and that you can or can't do things that you may want to do or eat or include in your lifestyle.
One
Okay.
of the things that, well, that a main focus really today, is like why diets don't work. Because I love that bit in your book about that. So, like, why don't diets work?
I believe, and from my experience, diets don't work because we approach them with a very like outside in mentality, meaning we think that there is a way, and then what I see happen is that we people will try to abandon themselves to stick to the plan or to stick to the diet, or we make ourselves wrong when we can't do it perfectly, or we don't want to do what the diet says, right? And so for me, when I say diets don't work, really what I think happens is that diets create a mentality, diet mentality,
Mm,
right? Which is something wrong here, something is broken, something needs to be fixed, and a diet is the savior the right way. And
Mm.
then when we can't do the diet, we we begin this like negative internal dialogue, right, within ourselves. And so I think it becomes a very toxic thing. And so I
mm,
always tell people that dietary systems can be fantastic guidelines. And if something speaks to you or you feel called to try something, use it as a general guide, but not in spite of yourself, right? Don't make the diet wiser than you or your body.
Mm-hmm.
And
mm.
uh,
I like that.
yeah, and really practice kind of, it's a nuanced conversation because I do think, the culture we live in, the conversations about body and weight and diets, I think a lot of people are simply just brought up. I know I was,
Mm.
to believe that there's a way to do it, and when you can't do it like this, that there's something inherently wrong with you.
Mm.
Right. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's about deprivation too, I
And
think.
it's about deprivation because we're trying
Yeah.
to will ourselves to do this thing. But the truth is like if you're not meeting yourself where you are and you're not being honest with what you want to do and how you want to do it, right? You're going to feel like you're working against yourself, and that's when we try to use willpower. And willpower is a temporary, you know, force, if you will. There's only
Mm-hmm.
so
Right.
long we can will against ourselves for. Like I always say, if it's you against you, eventually you lose, right?
Yeah.
You have to say to yourself like, what do I want and how do I want to do it, and how can I make it work for me? I say
Mm.
it all the time because it's been my journey and I believe it so much. It's like women need to learn how to be their own best friends, and like most of the things in society are not demonstrating that for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And we
I,
live in such a diet
yeah.
forward culture, especially God, the US is so crazy about that,
Yeah.
I think. And which is, I don't know. There's so many overweight people here. Me, for one, I put on so much weight since I've lived here. But yet it's all about everything's about diet. I
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah. It's almost the
it's
exact opposite. Yeah.
right. Yeah. It's just
it is.
anyway.
And it's funny too. It's like diets, I think they also kind of they make us think that, this whole healthy thing is supposed to be like fast and hard and perfect. And it's not, right? Like I've been in this game for so many years, and it's still daily work, right? Because it's a practice of like self compassion and like self, you know, building a friendship and a relationship with yourself. Like I think there's so much from the diet culture that makes you believe that it's supposed to be easy, and it should be effortless, and look at
Mm.
everybody else is doing it, and it's just not true.
Actually, I was going to ask you that, Dani. I was going to say, so now that you've obviously had experience with diets and you're now in this healthier relationship with food, is it something that you still find yourself having to make a conscious decision about, or does it feel all more automatic for you now? So, as you were talking about being your own best friend, do you find that does flow quite naturally, or do you still have to have those conversations with yourself?
So I would say, as far as I truly enjoy like the foods that I eat, and eating well is pretty effortless, I would say for me. Now
Hmm.
that I eat perfectly, right? Like well to me includes chocolate and cookies and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, I would say I still work on like for me, everything is a reason to eat. right? Like, I'm like, I'm happy, let's eat. I'm sad, let's eat. I'm
Yeah.
bored. Like, so for me, a lot of the work that I still do is really, that practice of going, food truly solves for one problem, and that's hunger, right? And so when I'm looking for food to solve for other things, and I tell
Hmm.
my clients this too, like food is a fantastic solution and it works temporarily for many different things. And sometimes I choose it. Like I always say, it's like one tool in my toolbox. Sometimes if I'm stressed, I eat. I choose to do it. It's a tool, right?
Yeah.
I don't want it to be the only tool in my tool belt, right? And so that is something I do work on. Going, okay, I'm not hungry now. I want to eat this thing. Why is that, right? And then I think when we can understand our desire to eat when we're not hungry, and I think this is really good work for anybody to do, because when you can because I'm going to back up. So many people, let's say if you have a desire to eat or overeat when you're not hungry for food, we think the answer is like, just don't eat, right? And so then we go into this like fight with food, and we
Hmm.
put so much energy and attention on food. But it's really about, again, coming back to that place of self-compassion and trying to understand, like, what are you needing right now? What are you really wanting right now? And then doing the work of fulfilling that with something other than food. And yeah, it takes more effort than eating. That's the
Yeah.
thing, right? And so I think acknowledging that what's actually happening, acknowledging that it can feel hard sometimes, and and then allowing it to be a practice and a process, because it truly is an ongoing practice. That's what I've found.
Hmm.
I like that you said in the section in your book about why we overeat, and you talk about the emotional eating, how you said you could write an entire book just about that. It's funny because I never pegged myself as an emotional eater, but the more that Sarah and I delve into things that, different topics that we've done, emotional eating was one of them. And I was like, well, yeah, I am an emotional eater. I think a lot of people probably are, that mindless eating,
Mm.
which, you
Well,
know,
I think,
it's,
it's a better thought. I love the idea, like, we are all emotional beings. So of course
mm,
we can be emotional eaters, right? Of course
mm,
we are. Like, we're not robots. You go to a birthday party, you eat cake, not because you're hungry, because you're celebrating, right? That's being
right.
emotional, and it's not bad, right?
Hmm.
And so I think it's really allowing ourselves to go, yeah, there are times we're going to eat for emotions, and that doesn't have to be this crazy negative label. It's a journey of understanding why we do what we do so we can choose. Do I want to do that? Sometimes I want to eat emotionally and I'm all good with that. And sometimes I'm like, this is not the way I want to eat emotionally. Right. And so again,
Right.
that awareness, so that we feel more empowered and not like something's happening to us.
Mm.
Right. But it still really is in your control.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people sometimes feel like it's out of their control and they've got to be on a diet or off a diet, not, eat a diet, if you understand what I mean. But I mean, we all can control it. I think just if
But I'm gonna
people
see it,
allow themselves to know that,
and
that
but
they can.
I would be a little more nuanced in this sense, because again, this is where it can get, our brains can, and like, surrender the approach of control, right? Like that,
Right.
control it, because even when I think that to myself, it does, like, notice how you feel if you think to yourself, right? Well, I should be able to control this, or I can control this. It feels a little bit shameful. It feels a
Mm.
little like I should
Okay.
be able to do this better,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Versus, you know, I can try to understand this. I want to understand this, and, practice making these decisions, because the truth is, in many ways, and this is my opinion, I think there are desires that we have. Like, I always explain to my clients that our bodies crave homeostasis. Our bodies want to be in balance, right? Energetically, they want to.
Mm-hmm.
Your body knows that if you get too contracted, too stressed, too uptight, that is the beginning of dis-ease. So the body's like, I want you to come back to balance. Now, if you're in a tight energetic state, your body knows sugar, alcohol, carbohydrates are the most expansive foods, and they will create expansion energetically in the body.
Hmm.
So your body is wise. It's always working for you. And if
Mhm.
if we come at this with an idea of like, I need to control my cravings, I need to control, you're trying to fight against a force, right? Like your body's connected to a bigger, it's always going to win in the end. It's
Yeah.
always in the end. So that's why, again, I always come back to this home base of befriending ourselves and trying to understand, like, your body is not working against you. If you're having chronic cravings, chronic desire, really trying to understand what's happening there is the key. Because when we come at it with the idea of trying to fix or control, we
Right.
automatically go like this with ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Automatically
Yeah.
to
That
do
makes
this.
sense.
And I can slip back into that easily myself too, because it's so pervasive. It's kind of what we hear all of the time. Like,
Yeah.
And it's also a band-aid. It's not digging into the whys, like you said,
Well, I was going to say that. So
asking.
you talk about honoring your hunger, and as you just described there, having these other reactive situations that your body is feeling. Do you have any, understandably brief, because I should imagine this is a huge topic, but
I
kind
good
of
one.
brief touch points that would help people identify maybe whether it's honoring true hunger or whether it is another feeling that they're feeling? And I totally understand. Actually, that's something I've never thought of about this battling with control, but almost trying to understand those feelings a bit more. How can people start to unpick, to identify that, rather than honoring a hunger, which you talk about as well? But how do they know if it's a true hunger or if it's something else?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I mean, I would say the very step one would simply be, if you're feeling hunger and you're like, I'm not sure if I really want to eat or if this is true hunger, just pausing and to me, closing your eyes, right? Trying to block out as many sensations as you can,
Mm-hmm.
and putting your hand on your stomach, or like on your heart and your stomach, and just feel like trying to drop out of the mind and into your body. And I think a lot of times when we have a desire to eat and we're not hungry, and we have this unconscious conversations that kick in faster than we even know they are, which is like, shouldn't eat, you're not really hungry, it's not time to eat yet. It's like that all happens. It creates a stress response in the body, right? So just closing your eyes, hand on your heart, hand on your stomach, and giving yourself permission, 10 deep breaths. First and foremost, self-love, self-compassion, like nothing has gone wrong, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then, would you like to eat right now? Are you hungry right now? What
Mm-hmm.
would you be hungry for?
Yeah, that's the way.
And listening, right? Because we're so wise. I think another thing about dieting is it really teaches us, we're so meta, right? We're so in our brains, we're so in our heads, like with information, that we lose sight of where the information really comes from, which is from our body.
Yeah.
So it's like quieting our minds to try to feel our body.
Yeah,
Why
that
do you
makes sense.
think that when people do lose weight, why? Because I mean, it's stats. I don't know, how true this is, but I know a lot of people that have lost weight and put it back on and then some, me being one of them. But why do you think that happens? Do you think it's that on off sort of mentality that why do you think people tend to put the weight back on?
Well, I think it's multifaceted. Okay. I think, you know, there's like, there's a deeper conversation for some people who, for whatever reason, can not feel safe at a lighter weight, right? So that's a bigger conversation.
Mm,
Some
Okay,
people have past traumas, like where just extra weight creates extra safety, extra uh,
barrier.
barrier. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bigger conversation. And then I
Right.
think also for some people, it's just they don't lose it in the way they want to live their lives, right? They lose it
mm,
white knuckling it. They lose it really using
Deprivation.
everything they've got to stick to the plan, but
Mm.
feeling like they need a break from it, right? Like feeling like it's like really hard work to do.
Right.
yeah.
And then eventually you're just like, okay, enough, like enough.
Yeah.
Do you find looking at in a different way? This is something that Sarah and I talk about. Um, that looking at it more from a health perspective than a weight loss perspective, or glowing skin, clear eyes, that sort of thing. Do you think that tends to help rather than thinking I need to do this to lose weight and be solely focused on that?
I think it does. I think for a lot of people it does. I think because we are so programmed to think extra weight means something is inherently wrong, that when we focus on weight loss, we automatically are putting ourselves into this mentality of fixing ourselves. Like, I'm going to be better when I get over there. I'm going to be
Mm.
better when I'm over there. I'm going to feel better. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be,
Life's just going to be better.
it's all going to be rainbows.
Yeah.
And like, but I think, so it's like, if you can meet yourself in the moment, always with the question of what feels the most loving right now, what feels the most nurturing right now, what's the most self, because sometimes like cookies are a loving decision and sometimes they're not, and that is about knowing yourself. Am I doing this because I'm truly going to enjoy it and I feel good, and I know, eat a few cookies, you feel great, it's delicious, you had them with your kids or whatever it is. At other times it's different, like I'm sad, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, and I just want to disappear and eat the cookies, and right? So it's never about the thing. It's always about how we use the thing or how we want to be in relationship with the thing.
Right, because I've experienced almost that you do the overeating or eating a particular type of food because you almost want to hurt yourself without realizing that, but it's almost that self-harm sort of situation, thinking, well, it doesn't matter because I'm so overweight anyway, I'm just going to make it worse. And it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? And then the more you eat, the more you feel like that.
So, okay, that's another, I know exactly what you mean, but I would argue that we don't want to hurt ourselves. That honestly, whenever we are overeating, we are doing our best attempt in that moment to take care of ourselves.
Right.
And I really believe that. I don't believe anybody eats like, I'm just going to, do self harm to myself. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that there's an emotional response that we don't know what to do with. We don't know how to meet. We don't know how to process. We don't know how to be with. And so we're either easing ourselves, we're distracting ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and food helps us get there,
It
right?
blocks it. I think it blocks that thought or that
Distracting
feeling.
ourselves. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yes, it's like,
Distraction.
so food is always,
Hmm.
it works, and that's the thing. But I think, going one even level deeper than that, it's that what happens when you get to that scenario you're talking about where you're just like, screw it, I'm just going to eat. I think what happens is we come in with all of these food rules and all these ideas of what we're supposed to do, right? You create all this internal stress, and then you just get to a breaking point where it's like you have to do it fast and you have to do it behind your own back because you're not
Yeah.
allowed to, right? You're not allowed to do it in the
Cheat
first place.
yourself. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you could just say to yourself, you're allowed, like you are allowed. Want to have some cookies? Have some. Like, 2 cookies is always going to be better than the sleeve, right? But that all starts with permission. And sometimes permission at the beginning is like, I'm having 6 cookies, but I'm lighting a
Mm-hmm.
candle and I'm sitting at the table and I'm putting them on a plate and I'm giving myself permission to enjoy them. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not doing it at the counter. I'm not doing it from the fridge. We only do that when we think we're not allowed to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. You talked about some of the tools. So you talked about, and it's really interesting that food is one of the tools in your belt. What are some of the other tools that you turn to when you obviously have really advanced in this and can recognize these feelings now? So what are some of those other tools that you would turn to?
And for me, a big one is fresh air. I mean, it's a pause,
Mm.
it's getting outside, it's
Yeah.
shifting my energy. Um, because a lot of times, everybody's different, but I've learned for myself over the years, I often reach to food to like ground in, right? So if I'm feeling a little stressed, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
transitioning from one part of the day to another, if I'm going from like the role of working to the role of being a mom, or, just things like throughout the day where I am needing a moment of transition, I tend to snack or
Yeah.
eat. So I've learned going out, just 5 minutes of fresh air and just walking around the block. It's cliche, but it really is a helpful tool for me. Another one for me is just permission to sit and do and stop. Because another thing I recognize for myself is that because I am a bit of an ambitious person, I'm a person that's does a lot and I'm in motion often. If I'm tired, and I don't give myself permission to stop and just sit down, take a nap or read a book or whatever, to do nothing, I will graze and snack because this was one that took me a minute to uncover. I feel like I'm being productive, like I'm still doing.
Oh,
Just
Mm.
okay.
very interesting, right? So
Yeah.
permission to just stop, like to sit down and say, I'm not doing anything for 20 minutes. Like I don't have to. You can get your own snack. You can, the kids could do.
Hmm.
I can stop. Um, so simple tools like that. Plus, I am a big journaler. I love to journal. I think it's very helpful if you find yourself wanting to eat and you're like seeing a pattern. You're like, I know I'm not hungry and I want to eat here. Try to identify like what is the feel state? What is the emotion that I'm wanting to eat over right now? With permission to still do it at the beginning. I think that's a big thing for people is we want to change so fast, right? It's like, and so I always tell my clients at the beginning, you notice and say, oh, it's stress, let's just say, right? It's
Hmm.
stress. And just acknowledge for yourself, I'm going to eat right now because I feel stress. There's a lot of power in speaking the truth to yourself without judgment. I
Mm.
think often change will come because something will let go of you rather than you having to do something when you allow yourself to acknowledge yourself with love,
Yeah.
right? I'm not wrong because I want to eat when I'm stressed. It makes sense. It works. It
Yeah.
tastes good. Helps me de-stress. Like it's a great tool. I just don't want to do it as often because I don't like the byproduct that comes in the long run,
Hmm.
right? So the ability to stay with yourself in all of these moments without judgment, which is a practice, no question,
Yeah.
uh, often gives us the opportunity to just let these patterns release. I think going back to dieting, especially people who work so hard, right? That are trying to lose weight. And we say it's not from lack of trying. People wanting to lose weight are some of the hardest workers in the room. And the mentality is always like, I can do more. I could do more. Bring it on. We'll do more. I'll eat less. I'll do more. I'll move. And it's like a lot of times it's less of a doing that is needed and it's more of a being. Can I be
Hmm.
with myself when I'm stressed? Can I be with myself when I'm lonely? Can I be with myself when I'm bored? Like, can I learn how to be with myself in all of these different states? And it's interesting because as we create more space for that, the desire to eat starts to lessen.
Yeah.
And then you see for yourself, it's less of a doing. I don't have to do another thing. I don't need to go on another diet. And it's more of an allowing. It's more of a just being.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
So for somebody that's starting out that, it's the new year, they're like, okay, this is the year that I'm finally going to do it. I want to lose some weight. I want to get healthier. What are your top 3 tips? Say you can add more if you like for somebody starting out that do you think would be beneficial for someone?
Well, it's
I know
from it
everybody's different, but
is. And from an action step, like for, so let's say for a place of doing, right? An action step, I would really truly say to pick one thing, right?
right,
One meal, one type of movement, one practice, one habit. It's for sometimes I say to people, maybe it's not even about food. Maybe it's about how you eat food. Maybe it's sitting down when you eat. Maybe it's setting a 20-minute timer that, my goal is to, receive the true pleasure from this meal for 20 minutes and not to just eat because of the calories or the nutrients but the real nourishment and pleasure that comes with a meal. Or maybe it is what you eat. Maybe it's at breakfast every day. I want to start with, a breakfast that's full with fiber and protein or whatever your goal is, right? Pick one thing that resonates with you. And I would truly practice that thing for 30 days, just that one thing. And with the mentality of, I'm doing a really good job. And every single day you do that one thing, you did that thing.
Hmm.
Because usually the diet mentality is the exact opposite. It's never enough, right? We're never doing it good enough. We're never doing enough. And it really creates a very negative internal
Yeah.
relationship and dialogue, and it feeds itself and it's painful. And I know because I've been there. Um, and so really permission to go healthy lifestyle and then weight loss, right? It is a byproduct of tiny daily steps. It's a
Yeah.
byproduct of
yeah.
tiny daily steps done consistently over time. And
That's
that
what we talk about.
exact
Yeah.
Mm.
opposite of what the diet industry teaches. And
Mhm.
taking a tiny daily step until you feel like it's just something that I do. I'm just a person that moves my body for 30 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day. Where you got to meet yourself where you are, right?
Mhm.
I'm just a person that does that. It doesn't feel so hard anymore. It's just kind of what I do. Like, I'm a person, I wake up, I do my morning routine, and then I work out. And I've gotten to this point in my life where it's like on days where I'm not, like my off days, it's like my body is like, where are we going now? And I'm like, we're not going anywhere today.
Yeah.
But like, it just becomes a part of who you are, just a part of what you do. So that could be like, oh, I'm a person who eats my breakfast at this time every day. And I try to eat this kind of breakfast. Or I'm just a person that when I eat lunch, I sit down and I enjoy my lunch. Like, sometimes take the focus off of food. Just say, I'm going to eat something that sounds good, but I'm going to eat it with pleasure and awareness until I'm satisfied. Permission.
Hmm.
And then, so that was one tip, I know. um, and there was one other thing I was going to say on that. I lost my train of thought.
I think pleasure, like you said about pleasure, I think that's so important because people think I need to lose weight equals deprivation. I said that earlier. But I think to enjoy it, to enjoy the small steps along the way, to the wins, I guess, the small wins of like
Hmm.
cooking yourself a nutritious meal that you enjoyed and just being in that moment and trying to do these things just little by little by little adds up to big in the end. But I think just thinking that there can be pleasure in this, and people can make it fun too. I think that's something that's important for people, rather than thinking, oh, that person lost 100 pounds, how did they do it? Oh, okay, well, they completely cut out a whole food group. Oh, I'm going to do that, and setting
Totally. And
themselves up for
you'll
failure.
notice, I've noticed over the years, like people who are really like the people that are really passionate and like extreme about nutrition, right? Like that you look at them on Instagram and you're like, wow, like she seems like she really likes doing that. They do, right? And so it's like they're doing what lights them up, and then they're just teaching it to other people, right? But a huge part that we overlook is like, does it light you up? Because we can't outwork our feel state, right? You can't outrun how you feel. And I always say, if, we will often reach for foods that match our emotional state, right? If you're feeling like, this is why we have comfort foods, right? Think of what comfort foods usually consist of, right? They're heavy, they tend to weigh you down, that's usually how we are feeling emotionally when we want comfort, right? We're feeling down, we're feeling weight. So think about, it's very difficult to eat a salad when you are feeling depressed, overwhelmed, stressed,
Hmm.
self-critical. We tend to want to eat foods that match our state of being. And so it's very important. Again, this is where that self-love and that self-compassion comes in, to notice where you are, so that you can, and so much of the negative energetic states will come from our own self-judgments. Like, I think that's really important to notice, especially when it comes to dieting. And that's why it's so important to give ourselves permission to just lighten up a little bit, however that looks. Like, feeling lighter might mean, I'm not going to make myself get the salad. I'm going to order the burger. Like, permission to just get the burger,
Yeah.
right? And and then permission to enjoy it and have the pleasure. And I always say, the only rule is, when you eat, you enjoy what you eat, and when you've had enough, you stop,
So, yeah.
right? And but in order to do that, there has to be that permission at the beginning.
Yeah. That's great advice. Really great
Dani,
advice.
thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and sharing your story and inspiring others. And there was some really great advice,
Hmm.
that I know Sarah and I are certainly going to follow,
Yeah.
I
Really different
guess, if you
things that I've
want, for
never
want of a
thought
better
of.
word.
Exactly.
Yeah, just looking at different and just being kind to yourself. I think that's a big message in there,
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
I'm not. So I know, and a lot of people aren't.
It's huge.
It's really huge. But I love your straightforward approach and your book, to just to healthy eating and losing weight. So yes, thank you so much for joining
Thank you.
us today.
Yeah.
Thank you
Really, really
for
great. And
having me. I could literally chat with you both all day.
I'm going to be sharing a couple of the recipes on our, hopefully that's all right, from your book. the
Definitely.
pancake recipe, the blueberry pancake recipe, because I love that a serving has 30 grams of protein.
I
And
love it.
pancakes, who would have thunk?
Exactly.
And the black bean, because as you were talking then about comfort, don't feel like a salad, I feel like something comforting. That black bean soup in there, there's just for people listening, you whiz up the beans and you make it all creamy. So I'm also going to share that one with your permission, if that's okay, from your Clean and Delicious. And if people listen in, they'll also find that maybe there'll be a little giveaway from Sarah and me, during the week. So thank you so much for chatting with us. We appreciate your time. I know you're very busy.
Thank you,
This will come
Dani.
out. Yeah. So that's been really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. It was my pleasure.
Thank
Okay.
you. Take care.
Okay,
Bye
you too.
now.
Well, that was awesome.
Oh, I actually genuinely learned so much, or thought of things that I've never thought of. It was
Right.
brilliant. Really great.
Yeah. And I think what I'm taking away from that is it's just like being kind to yourself. I mean, we say that a lot, but
I think
I
we do,
don't
but
always do
but
it.
not when it applies to those moments where you feel like you have overeaten, or you do genuinely think of yourself in a negative manner after those times, don't you? So I think that's my
Yeah.
two things for me. I think that's one of my biggest learning points from that, was just being gentle with yourself when these things happen,
Right.
because actually it is for a reason. And the small steps confirmation, we've
Oh,
said it many times. I'm
yes.
actually already doing that
So
for myself now,
important.
but just to remind myself that really small steps will add up to a big achievement. So that's great. Those are the
Right.
two biggest. So there's lots in there that she shared with us, but I think those are my two biggest takeaways.
One thing I don't do that I would really like to attempt
Mm.
is meditate, because when she was talking about putting her, like feeling your
Mm-hmm.
heart and your
Being
stomach
in your
and
body.
just being in your body and giving yourself a moment when you feel that urge to overeat and just to calm your mind and all the rest of it. I don't know. There's no harm in trying that, is there?
Well, also, I think it removes that whole sort of mindless situation where you feel like you're
Right.
just stuffing it in. If you suddenly become really aware of what you're doing, even if you, as she said, even if you do eat more than you normally would eat of something, then just to be kind with yourself about that. But at least you can
Right.
recognize the fact that you're doing it. I think another great tip was when Dani was talking about making a bit, for me, I heard like making a bit of an event about something. So putting the cookies on a plate and
Mm-hmm.
sitting down and eat them, or light
Right.
a candle and actually sit and enjoy it with a cup of tea or something, not
Right.
just sort of sneak by the biscuit tin, shove them
Shoveling
in.
them in.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. Have them if you want, but make
Mm.
it something which is an intentional decision rather than something just
Right.
trying to be like a sneaking situation. So yeah, loads to unpack and take away from that. I'm
Right.
sure everybody will find something that resonates with them
Mm-hmm.
from her advice and conversation.
And she mentioned journaling, and it was something that I have said I
Mm-hmm.
was really want to do this year.
Yeah.
But I always find that I think, oh, I don't have time to do that, but I think it's important. So I'm going to,
I
I'm
saw
going to,
a
yeah.
little post this week that said, spend 10 minutes outside every day unless you're busy, and then make it an hour.
Right.
Because actually the time that you need to be out there and doing it is when you feel like you haven't got it the most. So I think that's one of
Right.
those things, you feel like you haven't got time to journal. Well, actually that's exactly
Yeah.
when you do need to be doing it.
Right.
Because if
Right.
you felt like
Yeah.
you had time for it, you probably wouldn't need to be writing down as much. So that
Right.
is something to bear in mind.
No, I thought it was excellent.
Yeah,
She's great.
great.
She's passionate about it, and makes it fun. And especially, if people go and watch her YouTube channel, I like her no nonsense approach
Yeah.
to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the non-dieting thing, and why diets, like we talked about why diets don't work, but it's a whole non-diet,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
for want of a better word.
Yeah. Fantastic.
What's our challenge this week, Sarah, that I'm gonna nail?
Am I actually setting this? Come on now.
Come on.
So this week's challenge is to find 3 healthy recipes, 3 healthy staple meals to begin a bit of a go-to folder or book or somewhere that you can have as your arsenal, really. So when you're feeling in a rush and feeling like you want to turn to something, oh, look at you with your great big folder.
I have
Right.
a folder already.
There's either people in your camp, Lovoni, or there's people in my camp that don't have a folder that looks like that. So that's your challenge this week. Find three easy, healthy, staple meals that you're going to put in a folder. Do it, actually print them or write them out, put them in a book. And have them as a go-to. So grab a folder, grab a book, write them in if you haven't already got something.
Book.
Anything.
You know, like when I'm testing recipes, I like to write them down too.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we can build on that.
Yeah.
See, look, I've got things in here that I needed more sleeves, so I had to buy more of the plastic sleeves. So yeah.
Great.
But, you know, things that people enjoy. You don't want to pop anything in there that you just
No, it's got to be something you can easily fall back to, isn't it?
Yeah.
So at those times that are hard.
Yeah.
But that said, we're going to make some of Dani's recipes this week, aren't we?
Yep.
So you had some in mind already, and then I let you pick me one.
I chose Sarah's. Yes. Do you want to tell us what you're making?
You read it out from the actual title. Go on.
Okay, right. It's a red curry Thai. It's a
cod.
Thai red curry cod. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that sounds delicious with lots of veggies in it and quite simple
really
to make.
Coconut milk.
Coconut milk. Yeah, just throwing everything in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the one I'm going to make.
That too. I'm going to do the soup with the black beans and the pancakes, the blueberry pancakes.
Yes, with the protein.
Because people hear pancakes and they just think lots of carbs.
Yeah.
You know, lots of butter and maybe
assume
syrup,
it's something that you need to avoid.
But a serving, as I said, has 30 grams of protein. Because you know why? You know what's in it, Sarah? It's your favorite.
No.
You wouldn't know
Cottage
it though.
cheese.
Yes, you put it in a blender and whiz it up. You wouldn't even know it.
I would be prepared to try it. I would.
Okay, rightio. You heard that.
Yeah, everyone heard
that, everybody.
Live.
Yes. Heard that live on the Lovoni and Sarah podcast.
Yeah.
The cottage cheese hater. But it is good for things like that if you can have dairy.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. I can make it for me, can't I?
Yes, yeah. Join us next week as we delve into the world of ultra-processed foods, what they are, why they're so bad for your health, and what you can do to avoid them. We also have a giveaway next week, so tune in for that. I may have given it away. Dani's cookbook. Yeah, maybe. I think we're going to announce it on Thursday, which is the 18th, if memory serves me. Open to US and UK. Yeah, listeners. As always, thank you so much for listening. Visit our website, lovoniandsarah.com, for more on each episode, recipes, and the link to subscribe to our newsletter, weekly newsletter. Find links in the notes below to connect with us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel, please, where you can watch us now as well as, listen to us. Also, see the show notes for links to, so I'm going to put them there for Dani's cookbook. I'll do them for US, UK, and Australia, and her to her accounts on social media and her YouTube channel. Make sure to give her some loving because she's got some great recipes and some really good advice. So thank you for listening, and thank you once again to Dani for coming on the show.
Yeah.
So bye for now.
Bye.